Live from Capitol Hill, it is Wednesday, the 11th of March, year of our Lord, 2020. Let's just let that music fade out. That hard cut out of Denver, out of Colorado. Episode 27, 2:36 and a wake up to Election Day. Big night last night. Mini Tuesday. We're going to get to that in a second. Mini Tuesday without Mini Mike. On the John Fredericks Radio Network, Salem broadcasting throughout the nation. Also on AmericasVoice.news, now Dish Network. Channel 219. I think it's in 40 or 50 million homes. We'll check that as we go on. FM 99.1 in Chicago, FM 103.9 in the Chicago suburbs. Honored to be joined by the Republican candidate now, won the primary, Congressman Darrell Issa in California 50. Welcome aboard, sir. Good to have you back.
Good to be back.
The old
Steve.
impeachment show. Now you're back into the real war room.
Well, you know, what's funny in California is that you're not really the Republican nominee because you're one of the last two standing.
Oh, that's right. They got the jungle primary.
We have jungle primary.
Right.
It just happens in this case that I have a pretend to be centrist Democrat as my opponent in the general. But it's amazing how many races are two Democrats in the place I come from. And that's got to change, but that's the way it is right now. And, of course, the people who put together the jungle primary knew they could get that. They could eliminate Republicans in some cases.
Well, they've done it. I mean, California used to be the backbone of the Republican Party. It's where Nixon came out of. It's where Reagan came out of. I mean, it's
Be careful. It's where Earl Warren came out of.
It's where Earl Warren. That was a pick from you guys, right? Up there in Santa. Never pick a guy like that from Santa Barbara. You always ask him for problems.
Never make a deal at the convention is the story of Eisenhower on that one. But it is amazing that we have been a place that has been the seat of Stanford and other Hoover. We are a conservative think tank state, and yet right now we only have 7 out of 53 members of Congress.
It's absolutely stunning. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. If you're going to take the House back too, you got to somehow you got to.
When we take the House back,
when we take
get your
the House
talking
back,
point, Steve.
Then when we take the House back, Speaker Gates, maybe we're putting a hold on that for now. Sleeping in Walmart parking lots. Okay, let's go to the news. By the way, okay, here's the.
Wait a second. Walmart encourages people parking there for safety.
Exactly. Gas mask and all. Two-tone shoes. Very serious business. Now it's the framing device here. It's now Biden v. Trump, right? The incumbent President Trump versus the challenger Sleepy Joe. And it's pretty definitive last night. But for Biden, the Democratic Party, the Clinton-Obama junta that owns the Democratic Party came together pretty amazingly in the last 10 days.
Yeah, and what we're seeing here is an arranged marriage between the Democratic Party and Joe Biden. This is not a candidate they're excited about. This is not a candidate that actually went out and earned this nomination. This is
When you say excited about, Morning Joe and these guys, everybody's high-fiving. They're all happy. They're all glad.
It's the hatred against Trump.
Go below the surface.
It's the hatred against Trump. I mean, they're putting out there that he's the direct contrast to Donald Trump, that he's the kryptonite to Donald Trump. It's not about
how did they get off calling him the Donald Trump's kryptonite?
Just because he's the opponent.
Well, remember, with senility comes the ability to control. Okay, Joe Biden is
Whoa, that's what we got.
No, it's
Darrell Issa is such a hammer. That's why we brought him in. Let's just get away from the preliminaries. Let's just go right to the heart of it.
Joe Biden is controllable. Bernie Sanders was not. That's the reason he's the choice. The people behind the scenes, including the Clintons, love the idea that they'll have a sleepy Joe Biden. And, whether it's senility or simply that if he opens his mouth, he always, introduces.
It's Joe Biden.
Joe Biden. It's just going to be Joe. But Joe is a very controllable figure. And from a standpoint of policy, and so they expect that the machine will control his administration, which, quite frankly, could be.
But the machine was pretty impressive in how it came together. I mean, after Nevada, that was a roll. I mean, it's talk about, seize the moment, right? Bernie had it right there in his hands, and the apparatus came together and literally had a full shutdown. When you got Beto O'Rourke in Texas, right, endorsing you, I mean, all of them came together. Klobuchar, Buttigieg, all the cabinet members in Joe Biden's cabinet, right?
They all know that if you expose the Socialist Party for being the Socialist Party, they're unelectable. And that's what really happened. Bernie was really exciting when he energized the socialist. He is not exciting when you redefine the Socialist Democrats. They don't like that term.
That's what Michigan was so important, and particularly the home of Reagan Democrats, what Macomb County, is that the white working class and African Americans don't like socialism. It does not resonate, right? This is why, he went back and he actually sold to working class people and actually won on. Joe Biden's the biggest globalist in the world. Has sold out working class people, and he's going to have to own this in the fall. He's sold out working class people. He's supported NAFTA. He's supported every terrible trade deal. He's in bed with China. He's totally compromised, and yet he looks like he won the debate on that against Bernie because the way he framed it, that these are going to create jobs, this all this nonsense.
But here's the change of the dynamic, Steve, that you referenced at the top. This is now the mano a mano matchup with Donald Trump. Now Donald Trump can start slugging away on Sleepy Joe in a real deal fashion. This isn't him against President Trump against the field. And you see it right now where people are putting the pressure on Joe Biden. They're calling him out. Yesterday, and part of it is Joe Biden can't help himself. We saw that confrontation with a union worker on the auto assembly line floor yesterday.
But they're spinning that shows his ability to be a little Trump-like, right?
So this morning,
to me, I think it's a debacle because you're talking down to a working class person, right? And particularly about a cultural issue like guns. But they're playing it like, hey, this is how Biden's going to fight.
They played it on every broadcast news this morning. It's on NBC, ABC, CBS, and they're playing it. There is basically, here's the back and forth. It was a contentious back whatever, but the imagery of it is Joe Biden fighting with a working man. This is not picking a fight with some protester or like Chris Christie in the crazy teacher moment in New Jersey. This is someone who the Democrats desperately need to get back, and Joe Biden's picking a fight and standing up for his AR-14s.
Talk about Bernie for a second. Did Bernie put up a tough enough fight here? Was it a pillow fight, or was this a pillow fight, or did Biden really win this?
No, I mean, Bernie's a poster child for a low-T candidate. I mean, there was just nothing going on there. I mean, it was just complete. I mean, he just rolled over and played dead. He didn't even put up a fight. It was embarrassing.
It's somebody's promised Bernie that he's not going to be irrelevant. And
what do you mean by that?
He's going softly into the night, and that doesn't make any sense because he never has as a senator. So somebody has said, it's over, but we're gonna keep you relevant. And
this is why you think he didn't give a fire-breathing speech last night. He just went back to Vermont and he's licking his wounds and trying to figure out what he's doing. Otherwise, he would have come out and said, "Hey, I'm taking this all the way to convention. We're going to burn down Milwaukee. This is going to be 1968 all over again. This is a fight for our life."
Exactly. He knows it's over, but at the same time, if he has to know that somebody's promised him something. Now, look, politics is a funny business. There are a lot of promises that are not all kept.
Is that true?
Yeah, it is true. If you keep your promise in politics,
that's why I'm such a fan of yours, man. You get it all the time. You just keep pounding away.
Absolutely,
right?
But that's what shocks everyone about President Trump is he keeps his promises. It's so non-political. But you mentioned the auto worker and Sleepy Joe. I'm going to tell you, Joe Biden's happiest moment after he left office was when he got to drive his old 1960s Corvette with Jay Leno, and then he got to drive the new one. And just understand, he is still in that old 60s Corvette.
With corn pop, right?
The other one did not fit him. Look, Joe is in fact a car guy of the 60s and a train guy of every day after that. So that's where we are. That's what the debate's going to be about. But I think the important thing for all of us is we now have the Social Democrats trying to go back into hiding. And the important thing is that we make it clear. The socialists won the day, and then they compromised on a front man.
The 15% that voted, the Bernie followers that voted for President Trump or did not vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016. It's going to be a replay of that. The Bernie people should know. You've always got a home in the Trump movement. The economic nationalists, the working class, the people want the trade deals redone and get jobs back here. You got a home in the Trump movement. You don't always. In fact, we ought to play this, pull this for tomorrow. Bernie's interview on Fox the other night. I thought he had a pretty good analysis of some of the problems. Right, his solutions are all over the map. But if you're a working class person in the Bernie movement and you believe in his analysis of the problem, you've got a home in the Trump movement. You particularly got a home in November because the Clinton-Biden, neoliberal neocon apparatus holds you in total and complete contempt, right? And so that's why I think this thing's sizing up. let's do some. It's hashtag War Room 2020. That's where we want people to participate in the show. You can leave your condolences to Raheem, who's still on sickbed watch. We're on. This is War Room 2020, episode 27, 236 in a wake up. We're all over the nation. And we really want to thank the people at americasvoice.news. Now have us up on Dish Channel 219 in all the homes throughout the country, so that Jason can look marvelous every day. He and Raheem, when they come in, I got to clean up. I promise I'm going to shave, but I was up all night watching these markets. We'll be back in just a second.
War Room 2020. Bannon, Miller, Kassan.
Live from Capitol Hill, it's episode 27, War Room 2020. Jason Miller, Stephen K. Bannon. And one of my favorite people. It's one of my favorite people because he's tough as boot leather and just as cynical. Congressman Darrell Issa from California 50. It's so great to have you back in the hunt and going to have back on Capitol Hill. I want to turn now. President Trump, before he gets to Biden, got to fight a preliminary match. That preliminary match is a bug, is a virus. And now it's a health crisis, global pandemic. On top of it, you got a severe economic crisis, both the perturbations of this and the deeper issues of the supply chain, both for medical and medicines and also for the deep supply chain of all the manufacturing parts. On top of that, now we have a financial crisis. Markets down 800. Dow Jones down 800 again today. The 10-year treasuries trading at, 50 basis points. People are looking for leadership. One, they're looking for leadership in the health crisis. You've dealt with CDC. Oversight, I used to love it when you were on oversight because you were crushing people all the time, right? You brought them all up there.
Just asking questions for which they don't have answers.
The Socratic method. It was the Socratic method. No, but talk about it. Talk about the medical bureaucracy. Look, I like having the scientists up front. I like all that. Everybody's saying, the deconstruction administrative state, you want to get rid of those guys. We don't. What you want is more entrepreneurial people that have a sense of urgency. The problem is the medical bureaucracy at one time is very bureaucratic.
Both the CDC and the FDA are used to everything costing more, taking longer, and no accountability. And that's just been the nature of it. You only have to look at the rise of the cost of approval of drugs and the length of time, because they go together, to realize that we have a problem, and it is a problem that began well before Donald J. Trump became president. Here's the odd situation. When we look at pandemics, which we put in hundreds of millions of dollars every year, not just to CDC, but to the World Health Organization, to plan for pandemics.
This exact thing.
And then when, it happens, sort of like the hurricane, you go to the FERC, and you FEMA, and you say, where's your plan? And suddenly you go, oh, well, we didn't plan for this. Well, the hurricane in Louisiana, well, why didn't you plan for it?
Azar said the other day on CNN, he says, we're trying to get our reporting plan together. I don't want to hear that you're getting a reporting plan together when I'm 9 weeks into our thing and 5 months into when we first found about it. I think the reporting requirements for the test, I would hope that would have been set up.
And here's exactly the equivalent that I think the president now needs to deal with. You might remember from history, you and I are too young to remember this, but during the Cold War, they used to say when the Soviets come over the Czech border, you have to come as you are and bring what you have, because whatever your plan is, it's going to change. Well, that's where we are today. Is the CDC had a bunch of plans. They obviously their plans were not ready. They are
come as you are and bring what you have.
Bring what you have. So the first thing you have to do is you have to deal with this pandemic by suspending the FDA's rules and procedures and say, you know what, just like a deadly cancer, or be honest, like we dealt with AIDS, you have to say, the president has to say, your job is to allow people the opportunity to try anything that has been
and take the litigation risk away. If they sign off on it, litigation risk goes away.
These kinds of procedures.
Talk about the test. Now the president took bold action. We had the guy from New England Institute of Complex Systems yesterday. He said bold action is needed early on in these complex systems. President, he's very proud of, took bold action to limit the travel from China and also to quarantine people coming back, which hadn't been done in 50 years. It seems like we might have lost the thread after that. This test talk about the CDC. You can't, Redfield and these guys, you can't quite get a handle. Azar gets lit up on CNN the other day, not actually having responses like in Drudge every day puts up, 1,500 people, tested, 1,900 people tested. It's causing an alarm.
Of course it's causing an alarm. And one of the reasons it's causing an alarm is that the CDC figured a few hundred or a few thousand kits, and they also figured that you would show symptoms before you were, in fact, contagious. Well, they were wrong. The fact is you need probably millions of kits because you're going to have to test people who are asymptomatic if you're going to stem the transfer of this disease. And that they weren't ready for it, and they're still in denial. So that's the first problem. The second problem, and the one that I think is most important, is we have to understand this is like all flus. Eventually, we will all get the flu. So vaccine or natural immunization are the only two ways to.
You don't believe you don't believe social separation. You don't think you can stop at that. I know you either get a vaccine or herd immunity, but herd immunity is what they say. Run its course. I'm not so sure the outcomes of running its course. It's running its course in Italy right now.
Steve, we are all going to get one of those two. Now, this separation is slowing the pace. That's buying time. And again, going back to the Czech border, there's a reason. The first thing you do when a superior force comes over is you move backwards because that buys you
strategic
time.
Retreat.
Strategic. But eventually, this slowing is still going to have the same result, which is we're going to have
Congressman, I want to shift it a bit from talking about the FDA and the CDC and the career bureaucrats that we have within the medical community, because I do think they've been asleep.
Well, and they are 100%. There's really nobody at the CDC or the FDA that's a political. They are all career, and that's what people have to recognize.
Look, it's the medical administrative state. That's what this is, and much in the same way. So I want to shift it over to a minute back to your old friends on Capitol Hill that you'll soon be fighting once again. Tweet out just a moment ago that House Democrats are expected to unveil a coronavirus response package later this afternoon. Pelosi expected to brief Dems at 4 p.m. meeting per Chairman Jeffries. So we saw President Trump come out and take the strong action and put down the suspending the payroll tax, loans to small businesses, helping out hourly workers. The stock market responds in a positive way. And then yesterday, we see House Democrats basically poo-poo the whole thing. And everyone heads out of town for resets next week. Now Pelosi is going and saying, oh, well, we're going to have a package. What are the president's levers here? What do you think that Pelosi and the Democrats do?
And do you think the president's talking one thing, which is bold? It's payroll tax cuts for both corporations and individuals for a year. It's bold action. I get the Secretary of Treasury and Larry Kudlow on Laura last night. Ingram, you don't quite get the boldness, and you got to walk in with some details, and you're going to need some motive force. This thing's not going to pass itself. So walk us through how this is going to take place.
Well, as you know, Steve, in all likelihood, China is going to slip into recession. They're going to have a negative GDP for the first time in memory.
This is my man right here, because they're saying, 2% growth. It's all a lie. It's going to be down 5,
it's hard,
5 or more.
Right. So knowing that they would lead us all into a global recession, the president has a reason to fight recession.
Exactly.
That's separate from what we were talking about earlier, which is he has to fight the bureaucracy that is slowly going to come up with a fix for this pandemic. So does he have two fronts? Absolutely. He's going to need
Do you set up a task force independently for the second front, for an economic task force right now? Put like a czar, put somebody – you got Pence doing the health care, which is so overwhelming. Do you also bifurcate this and just have one on the economic and finance capital market side that reports also directly to the president?
He needs to put together a tiger team that has both the free market people like Kudlow and a group of people who understand the House and the Senate that can put together a package that
Can we
works.
throw a couple of nationals in there like Navarro? I mean, can you give me a little – come on. I know.
Supply chain. Look, it's
yes.
supply chain. This is national security.
Yeah, there's no question at all that one of the challenges is, should you have an inducement for quickly domesticating certain parts of the supply chain, as Jason was alluding.
Can we ask you to stay over? You were going to stay for the first half show. Can you stay
Absolutely.
for a few minutes? Okay. Congressman, soon-to-be Congressman Darrell Issa from California, 50, one of the great fighters in the Trump movement, always has the president's back. It's Jason Miller, Stephen K. Bannon, War Room 2020. We're going to return everywhere on every platform in just a moment.
Room 2020 with Stephen K. Bannon, Jason Miller, and Raheem Kassam. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Scratch Kassam, add Issa. No, we can't do that. Then he can't run as a former as a retired congressman. No, we're not going to do that. FEC, we're just kidding. Darrell Issa joins us from California 50 today. Okay, Jennifer Jacobs, who's well-sourced inside the West Wing and on Capitol Hill. She's the lead correspondent of the White House for Bloomberg, right? A great news service. What is she? She just tweeted out something.
Just tweeted out breaking, immediate action on payroll tax holiday not needed. Senate Finance's Chuck Grassley says needs to be further examined, could be passed quickly later if support builds for Trump's idea. Quote, right now it doesn't have bipartisan support, Grassley said.
I guess it wasn't such a great lunch. I mean, this is I tell you, this is what the global markets looked at last night from Asia all the way through Europe. They look for backup. The president had a great pitch, right? And people were looking for the action. That's just, that's brutal right there.
Look, and you have the bankers coming into the White House today. I mean, this is
the tech guys. They're going to say, "Hey, tell us what you're doing. What's the overall plan?" And these are the corporate guys. This is not about getting just cash out to the little guys with the loan forgiveness and how you're going to do unemployment insurance, how you're going to get cash to the little barista. This is the big tech guys are all coming in, Google, Amazon, all those guys, and you got the banks coming in, right? They're having two talks. That's people that can actually, the delay or the putting in abeyance the payroll cap, which is basically roughly, I think, $100 billion a month, $50 billion to the corporations, $50 billion to the individuals.
And look,
the president was talking about $800 billion. He was talking about a bold program that would be a stimulus of $800 billion. That was, hey, no thanks.
Here's the thing that's so frustrating about this. Now that's the mano-a-mano contest with Joe Biden. Joe Biden has canceled his Tampa rally for Thursday evening, is now going to be giving a coronavirus response speech from his home in Wilmington, Delaware.
This is from the Delaware, from the summer White House. He's going to try to act very presidential and give the State of the Union Corona speech, right? Yeah,
it's going to be very managed. It's going to be, here are all the small things that we can do. I know this guy. I used to work there. I know the CDC. I have these relationships. That is, I can tell you in advance already, that is what Joe Biden's going to do. What we need right now is the bold leadership, Steve, that you keep coming back to, the only President Trump can deliver. And this is why it's so frustrating to see Chuck Grassley basically poo-poo this, because we need the bold action.
Well, and look, Chuck had every right to say, I don't like this particular solution. The challenge that is always in the Senate is they don't like a solution, and then they say, well, now we'll look at and study an alternate. The fact is, if you don't have a better solution than the president's, then you better take the one that works. And that's exactly what's going to happen is they'll go 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. They'll come back from recess. They'll have gotten pounded.
3 or 4 or 5 weeks, you're going to drive it. This is going to be added to China. You're going to have a recession in the third quarter. This is what I don't get.
And they're going to still take the president's proposal.
At the end of the day, we're going to get to the same place.
They're not coming back with a better proposal, because if they had a better proposal, they already would be talking about it.
Let's bifurcate proposal for a second for urgency. And I realize the framers set this up so stuff is just not done helter-skelter. And you have monetary policy and fiscal policy. And fiscal policy, you have to have buy-in. There's some things you can do, like delaying the filing of the tax returns. There's some actions the president can do with executive orders. But when you talk about real money, you got to get buy-in. What about – walk people through. Is there a sense of urgency as you feel it in this city today to deal with the financial and economic crisis that's layered on top of this health crisis?
No, there isn't, and that's the problem. That only at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is there any feeling of urgency. The situation at the White House is the president's demanding answers. He's quite candidly, he's giving his cabinet fits because he's telling them that it isn't business as usual, and that's what should be happening on Capitol Hill. Look, earlier this week, Carolyn Maloney had scheduled a hearing on the basically abuse of power of the executive branch by not complying with subpoenas. In other words, she was going to relitigate the impeachment. She canceled it when I was chosen as a witness. She did not want to have the discussion of Obama. But if they're thinking like that, rather than she's the chief of oversight today, why is she not hauling in people to find out why FDA timelines are going out, why vaccines have been missing the mark. Even regular flu, N1H1, have been missing the mark to where we're only getting 20% effectiveness. Remember, one of the challenges we have, separate from the president's economic initiative, is that when we have been doing flu vaccines lately, they say, well, the cocktail wasn't quite right this year, and so it really didn't help much. Well, we cannot afford that with Corona. We need to have bold action, and that's where the president is forced to do two bold things at once.
Okay, we're going to take another short commercial break. We're going to ask Congressman Issa to stay over for this next, and we're going to get back into the first round. The preliminary thing he's got to do is take on this virus and the economic crisis. It's Jason Miller, Stephen K. Bannon, and Congressman Darrell Issa will return in just a moment.
War Room 2020. Bannon, Miller, Kassan.
Live from Capitol Hill, it's Wednesday, the 11th of March, year of our Lord 2020. Another looks like historic day in capital markets and in politics here. They're all inextricably linked. And this is what happened yesterday. Global financial markets. Look, whether you like it or not, we've got an economic crisis on top of a pandemic, but we also have a capital markets and financial crisis, both in credit markets and in equity markets. And if you don't think so, pick up the phone and call your buddies and your friends out in West Texas right now in the Permian Basin in the fracking business. Call them up in Pennsylvania and North Dakota, okay? This is an issue, and it's got to be dealt with. The President of the United States turned this thing around yesterday, right? I think had a 12 or 1,300 open, which means that people are now see confidence that there's leadership in the United States taking forward, being bold. He goes to Capitol Hill, has a lunch with our guys, walks out and says, I had a great lunch. Everybody's on board. We're united. And we're united to be bold. I'm actually asking for a 1-year suspension, basically to the end of the year, of the payroll tax, which is probably $100 billion a month. My math may be slightly off, but roughly.
On both sides, both on the
employer and employee, the whole thing, 50-50. But today, a guy on his after Nancy Pelosi announces that I'm coming out with a fully baked program from the Democrats in the House that I can pass, right? Chuck Grassley comes out and says, and I think kind of in an insulting way, you didn't do your homework. It's not for us at this time. Kind of like, not even we want to engage. We're going to work on it. I mean, it's like, this is bad.
Yeah, I mean, look, if someone half hour ago read to me and said a certain member of Congress said immediate action on payroll tax holiday not needed, and then right now it doesn't have bipartisan support, in my mind, that would be Nancy Pelosi doing the alligator clap right at Donald Trump. And okay, great. So I expect this from Nancy Pelosi. Didn't expect this from Chuck Grassley.
Yeah, Chairman. Now I want to go to you. You're actually going to be in a dogfight in the fall in California. If we're to take the House back, you got to start winning some seats in California, right? How tough? Nancy Pelosi is going to come out today, have a fully baked program that says, I got the votes, and set the narrative. Here on our side of the football, the president's trying to put forward bold measures. This is why the market's down 800 points a day. People don't
960,
right after that thing. And here's the reason: if you're globally, or if you're out there and your livelihood depends on smart trades for your clients, most of which are pension funds, right? You're a fiduciary. You got to sit there and go, hey, I liked what Trump said. Right, but Grassley just essentially dismissed that hand and essentially said no urgency. Doesn't mean to be done this time. How hard does it make your job?
It's not going to make our job hard, because what's going to happen is, yes, Nancy Pelosi is going to come up with something, and it's going to look remarkably like the president's proposal. It's going to be a tax-related stimulus. Kevin McCarthy, Republicans are going to look at it in an open way, and they're going to look at it on behalf of the president. So by the time it leaves the House, it's either going to be a straight partisan deal that the president can't support, or it's going to be a bipartisan deal that's going to then put pressure on the Senate. Look, at the end of the day, there are graveyards all over America, but there's none more certain for things to die and be buried than the U.S. Senate. It's just the nature of it. So a good idea over lunch dying within hours in the Senate is not unusual. They have a strong tendency to say, we have 6-year terms. Why hurry? I'm sorry.
Here's why: because the guy that you're having lunch with has an 8-month term left, and to get the extension, the 4-year extension, you can't have a recession in the third quarter, and we're going to be heading to a recession. You brought up the brilliant point. China's going to be pulling us there anyway. Italy was going into a recession anyway. Now they're talking about $1 trillion stimulus there that the Germany's not going to support. Italy's going to a depression. Okay, so you've got these forces globally. Now in the United States, you're not moving with the urgency. The Senate should have Trump's back.
But the incentives and the programs that President Trump undoubtedly is going to be unveiling, not just this $800 billion stimulus, but the return of the supply chain to the U.S., the capital investment. You know, one of the things, and I'll say it on this show, that hasn't yet been talked that Grassley should have said, because Grassley's the right age to remember investment tax credits. He's the right age to remember that when Reagan was faced with an impossible situation, the first thing he said was, okay, we will let you have these massive credits if you make capital investments in making America great again. That is Peter Navarro. That is Donald J. Trump. That is Ronald Reagan.
Marco Rubio now with a don't use it for dividends and stock buybacks. Use it to put capex into
exactly
factories into the ground.
We can make America self-sufficient and keep ourselves from having this recession being pulled down. If as China is imploding, we're in fact bringing jobs back to America. That's going to happen in the Trump economy. The only question,
but you're going to be shredding. You're going to be shedding jobs now. You're going to be shredding jobs. These guys are the small. Look, the hotels are empty. The airlines are empty. Boeing's going to have a massive order. They're just going to come back and say we don't need we got a force majeure out. A virus happened. Cathay Pacific's all grounded. All these airlines are all grounded in Asia. They're going to sit there and go, I need only one of the 2 planes I ordered from you, right? So you're going to lose jobs unless you take bold, dramatic action now. How's it playing right now in the political community? What's Twitter lighting up on this thing?
So political community largely focused this morning on Azar, who made the rounds on TV. Thought he was very good. I was clubbed him a little bit yesterday. Good, sharp answers.
That's what got good. He listened.
He was asked the question by Stephanopoulos right off the top, how many how many tests have been conducted? And he said, look, you're asking the wrong question. He's like, we know the exact number of positive results that we've had that have come in. CDC knows all that. A lot of people test negative on that. So you're asking the wrong question. He goes, we know that. And then he went through, here are we getting the tests out?
Better answer.
Much better answer. He's also pledging that there's going to be aggressive action that's coming from both the administration and the CDC today going to local communities. And look, Azar, I will give him credit on this. He stood and delivered on Fox News, ABC, and CBS, making it very clear that we're going to see more of these cases, and there's no way that the U.S. as the center of the global economy is immune from this. He stood there and delivered it, and I tell you, he didn't get any strong pushback from Stephanopoulos or from the CBS folks because his answers were on point. So good job by Azar.
But this is also a lesson. Go in hard. Go in bold. Do not back up. Have your facts and just bang, hit it.
Pledge tough action. Pledge dramatic action.
Follow up the action. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. Come to the last segment. In the last segment, we're going to ask Darrell, Issa, who we know the president thinks very highly of, if we had him in the Oval Office this afternoon, what 3 action items would Darrell Issa tell the president he would have to take? We're going to take a short commercial break. Episode 27. It's the Natalie attired. I like the pink tie there. The Natalie attired Jason Miller standing in for Raheem Kassam. It's Stephen K. Bannon. Episode 27. 2:36 in a wake up on War Room 2020. By the way, to participate, and you're blowing us up here, we love it, on the put us on blast on hashtag War Room 2020. Want to hear what you have to say? We love it. And also go to the podcast. We have over, 3.5 million downloads on the podcast. Podcast is on fire. Make sure you go. Back in a second.
War Room 2020. Bannon, Miller, Kassam.
War Room 2020, live from Capitol Hill. Bannon, Miller, Kassam, and now Issa. We're going to turn to the Congressman on California 50 in just 1 second. What is Twitter saying about Grassley's? Any support for the president here?
One of the listeners, Chris Gwynn, made the comment here, gee, damn it, Grassley, reverse yourself immediately.
I like that. Grassroots stepping up.
Yeah, a little editing on that one. And then the haters, the Democrats are piling on saying, see, even Republicans are disagreeing with President Trump.
This is the point. In a crisis mode, in a time of urgency, When he went up to Capitol Hill, he didn't have to do that. He went up there to show that, hey, I'm prepared to come to you, to show the urgency. The markets responded very favorably to that. Then it was to pull together. And if you got those kind of disagreements, do it. Get to Mnuchin. Start working this thing through. You don't tweet that out just right in his face. When Pelosi announced she's coming out this afternoon, not acceptable. If Darrell Issa was in the Oval Office this afternoon, understanding the president thinks very high of your judgment. One of the reasons you're one of the few real entrepreneurs, you came from nowhere, made it on your own. You're a businessman. You're not some lawyer, right? So what's the three things you tell the president he's got to do?
The president has to deal with the rest of the world dragging us down. So he's going to have to do both an economic stimulus and look at the impact of the supply chain and our customer base. You mentioned it before the break. The fact that Boeing's going to have lots of aircraft canceled, that all kinds of things that go on in the world are going to be reduced for a while. We have to make up for it in the U.S.
You're one of these big free market guys. I know you're very hesitant about government spending. When you say stimulus, you support some big kind. Do you support some kind of massive? Let's get on with it.
Look, if the president looks at the global market and says, "Help us all," we're going to go down together. If he looks at the American spirit and the American entrepreneur and says, "Okay, we need a race for the cure," and we'll put whatever amount of dollars and incentives.
A Manhattan Project
for a
vaccine.
For the vaccine, then the world gets the benefit. If he looks and says, we can no longer count on China that is shut down right now for our medicines and the base products, and he looks and says, I'm going to let you, corporate America, I'm going to let you expense all the cost of replacing that Chinese supply side this year in the U.S., suddenly things go on. The most important thing, though, is the president is the only person that can drag bureaucrats into the White House and have them leave knowing that business as usual is unacceptable. So more than anything else, as he has these three areas that he has to confront, he has to be the person who drags people into the Oval. No more going to Capitol Hill. Drag them into the Oval, explain to them that he will use executive action to suspend their rules if they cannot make their rules meet America's timeline.
To Congressman Issa's point, Dr. Anthony Fauci up on Capitol Hill testifying right now, just saying that we've reached phase 1 of the coronavirus vaccine faster than anyone has ever done in history. So the message has been sent pretty clear.
This is what he's banging some heads and he's getting some results. This is what's got to happen. I want to thank Darrell Issa for joining us. He's in California 50th. It's going to be a tough fight this year, but if you have to have somebody shoulder to shoulder with you, Darrell Issa is the guy you want. Okay, short commercial break. We're coming back with War and Pandemic, hottest show in the globe. Jason Miller's agreed to sit in for the first half. We'll be back in a moment. Dr. Hatfield.